Hello, you're about to hear Good Morning Seminole, our monthly signature event. Please enjoy.
But we have a great panel this morning and lots to cover, so please welcome Jennifer Englert from Orlando Law Group to moderate our panel.
Thanks, Rebecca. Now let's get into our presentation today and welcome our panelists. First, we have Shaheen Barrett, who is the Senior Manager, HR Business Partner from Verizon. Next, we have Carol Ann Logue, Director of Programs and Operations, Innovations, Districts, and Incubation Program from the University of Central Florida. Next is Dawn Sipley, President of Sipley the Best. And then finally, girl, already? And finally, we have Nilda Blanco, Senior Vice President, Workforce Operations from CareerSource of Central Florida. Thank you, panelists. All right, we'll start with a very large question to set the stage. What is the state of the workforce in Central Florida today, in broad terms? Shaheen, you want to start with that one?
Sure. Hello? Perfect. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me. I would say from a Verizon perspective, again, we are a global workforce, so we're hiring folks all over the world every day. And in Florida, I was still very pleased. We moved here 10 years ago to build a campus in Lake Mary because largely there's an existing workforce that we felt was what we were looking for in terms of finance professionals. But there's a lot of colleges, and the universities really put out great talent every year that we can really draw on. So. Even after COVID, we've had great success really drawing from the universities, hiring excellent talent, and being able to fill up the positions we have. So there are no shortage of excellent talent here in Central Florida, and we're happy to be here.
Perfect. Nilda?
Well, good. I'm short. Nothing works for me.
I feel that.
You feel me? All right. You notice I had to take the stairs. I would say headlines for Central Florida from our perspective is obviously talent is the game. When you think about workforce development, education, economic development, when you look at the number of individuals wanting to work, those numbers have decreased. When we look at labor force participation, those are all the people who can work, who are actually working. We're at 64.4%. So that means there's 36 point blah, 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 all my financial people, you do my mathy math, out there that aren't working. And so that dynamic, challenges how we think about how we recruit, how we retain. So I think those are big pieces of what's happening in the landscape out there. I think as we look at job growth, we have outpaced the nation's job growth in Central Florida. And we are on pace to continue growing. But our math isn't working. So when we think about our population size, we're about 2.9 million people. We have a workforce about 1.5. There's a math problem there, right? As we have a lot of folks moving to the region, we can't assume that all those folks are coming to take these great jobs, right? They could be coming to enjoy our sunshine, or they're coming with remote jobs. And so it's their work-life balance. And so as we think about how we recruit and engage, I think we really have to start looking at our schools, both at the college level, but also at our high school and middle school levels. Those students and how they think about work, right now they're trying to figure out what that looks like. So we have an opportunity. They could either think about going to work as, not feeling it, or these are some amazing jobs, and I never thought I could do X. So I think that's the biggest opportunity in headline here for Central Florida.
Okay, Carol Ann?
My answer to this question typically is it changes every day.
That's true.
And there's a number of reasons for that. To your great statistics, I didn't bother with statistics because I knew she would. But we all know that the in-migration that's happening here, the constant growth of the population, the multi-generation that's in the workforce, the job opportunity growth, but the education infrastructure continues to evolve rapidly as well, both in what our high schools are focusing on and what they're teaching, certainly our colleges and universities. I look at what's going on at UCF, and you think of UCF and you think of 4-year degrees, masters, PhDs, and certainly we have hundreds of those. But increasingly, we are moving toward micro-credentialing. We're doing short course programs, we're doing boot camps, we're doing upskilling for corporations and certain target demographics to meet the demands and the needs of the companies that are here, that are starting here, that are growing here, and that are moving here. The workforce is dynamic, but it is very rich. It is one of the key things that attracts companies to come to this community, to start in this community, and to stay in this community.
I love everyone's diverse answers. To take another perspective, the immigration is impacting our workforce. Just yesterday, I was at the Central Florida Employment Council's job fair held at the Central Florida Fairgrounds. And when I arrived, there was a crowd of individuals that had been dropped off in buses. I had not seen what that meant for individuals to be dropped off in buses. And it was absolutely overwhelming to the fairground facility. And it's something that I see every day. I take no political stance on it. My heart hurts for these individuals that are fleeing countries, but it does impact our workforce. And when I am consulting with small business owners, more and more of them are deviating away from legal means of employment. And it impacts things, and along with remote work and things like that. So that's just another perspective here in Florida. Agree with it or disagree with it, it is impacting our jobs.
All right, Dawn, my next question, and maybe it might touch on something that you've already talked about a little bit. What would you say is the number one issue that concerns the workforce in Central Florida right now?
I would say that is the dynamic environment that we have been living in the last 4 years. People's lives have truly been impacted and changed by the pandemic. I know we're post-pandemic now, but we have fluxed so much, and the increase in wages and the inflation for small business owners has really been crippling. I've had to meet with them, and looking at their numbers, when you look at their payroll numbers, it is the largest line item for a lot of small businesses, which are most of the businesses here in Central Florida. So I would say wage increase has had a heavy impact.
Carol Ann, what do you think?
The companies that I have the opportunity to work with and speak with, certainly that's a huge issue, is the increased requirement for higher salaries, both to compete with other areas of the country, address the increased cost of living, and to some degree the expectations of the younger generations when they're getting their degree and walking across the stage. Frankly, it's kind of interesting to see the expectations there. But just the increased cost of doing business. I know so many companies that have had to cut their workforce. I think we all do, because they've had to increase those salaries. The remote challenges, certainly we see that tendency of companies, that trend for companies requiring employees to come back to the office. Employees don't want to go back to the office. There's just so many dynamics. I'm very hard pressed to pick one issue, but the increased costs are one of the ones I see primarily. And the cost of certain types of talent, very highly specialized talent, as we have an increasingly vibrant tech and innovation community here in our corporate community.
I echo what Carol you say. It's like when you say, what's that one thing? I'm not sure there is a one thing because everything kind of hinges on it. You talk about the cost of living. You talk about the median cost of a home these days, right? We have young people, or young adults, I shouldn't say young people. They look at me and go, I'm not young people. But our young adults, they've graduated, maybe they have a job. When some of us, we look at those generations in the workplace, right? Some of us, we graduated college, we had a goal of, I want a car, I want a home. You had those things, and those young people are like, I don't know if I want that. The market hasn't given them that opportunity. And so when you look at inflation, you think about cost of apartments, cost of homes, just all of that, it's hard for those generations to feel like they've got their foot in the door and moving forward, which I think also adds to their disappointment, per se, of what life and work is supposed to be. And so their rationale for work-life balance is validated. And so I think that's a really interesting dynamic, because we really hadn't had that dynamic in the workforce. I think, pandemic and coming out of pandemic has really shifted all that and how we think about those things. And so all the things that we used to do that worked, we all know that they don't work at all. And so we're all looking at each other going, what's the best practice? What are you doing? What are you doing differently? And so I think the number one issue is trying to be innovative in a space that we typically have not been innovative in, because we thought, well, wages, if I offer a great paying job, I'm going to get my talent. Now it's got to be more than that. It's got to be, when you think about compensation, work-life balance, what do I offer from a professional development? How can you grow here? Show me your career path. To your point, your graduates are like, okay, I graduated, I got my diploma, when am I going to be CEO? Exactly. Baby, come here, we need a conversation. So how do we manage those dynamics in the workplace?
So I think my answer is probably a combination of what everyone just said. Just to create some context, the Verizon location here is a finance hub, so it's about 1,300 to 1,400 people. There are 95% finance professionals, bachelor's degrees, master's degrees. So it's a very specific skill, right? These are very qualified folks. So they have no issue getting employment. We have no issue finding them here. But again, when we moved here, 10 years ago, part of the idea was we can hire folks that'll love to live in Florida, because who wouldn't love to live in Central Florida? I love living here. And it's reasonable. They can come, they can get a beautiful home, way better than they can get in the Northeast, and have a great experience. And if you look at over the last 5 to 10 years, it's gotten so much more expensive. And so now for them to come and buy that home that they thought they were going to buy for $300,000, thinking of what Florida used to look like however long ago, and they're finding out it's actually $600, $700. So it's a lot more expensive than they anticipated. So the cost in general, I think, is a big factor. And then you kind of marry that with return to office. So over the last 4 years, these folks have worked from home. Some of them on their own kind of took it upon themselves and said, hey, I'm going to move to Tennessee. I'm at home anyway. No one knows where I am. It's a lot cheaper to live in Tennessee or Alabama and these places. And so now we're saying, hey, we need you to come back in the office once or twice a week. And we're having a lot of challenge really getting folks to want to come around. Some people are saying, hey, I'm going to leave. Some folks are taking vacation days. They're trying to find alternative ways. But I think they're doing the calculation of the cost versus the value, and it's just not necessarily adding up for them. So that's probably the biggest challenge for them.
Jennifer, there's just one other issue that we haven't touched on here in this question, but I think I see it given where I sit, and that is every day there are new jobs emerging, new types of jobs. I look at what's going on. I work in a world that's heavily focused on science and technology, so artificial intelligence, immersive technologies, data science, some of the advanced materials. It's just every day there are new skills with all these cutting edge technologies that the education systems, we're very challenged to keep up with. So for companies to even know sometimes who they need, much less to find individuals that have the skill they need, it is an increasing challenge that I'm seeing.
Thank you for that. Shaheen, you touched on how Verizon recruits and has people and employees all over the world. How does Central Florida compare with the other locations where Verizon has large locations?
Yeah, Central Florida stands up it's positioned very, very well compared. We literally have folks in all over the world, and some of that benefits from cost, because in some parts of the world they're trained well, so their skill set is really, really good, and frankly, it's less expensive. So I think about the U.S.-based. The U.S.-based Central Florida is probably still, as much as I've just finished ranting and raving about how the home prices have gone up, try to buy something in New York City or New Jersey. And so if you look at Verizon, a lot of our employees are in the United States are in the Northeast, right? New York, New Jersey, Boston, Connecticut. So those places are incredibly expensive. So if you're a college graduate, or even if you're an existing professional and you want to buy a one-bedroom condo, forget about it. So coming to, Central Florida is still, again, we get a lot of folks from UCF. We have a ton of UCF graduates and a great partnership actually where we continually get students from UCF. So Central Florida really is a great talent pool. We love being here. We love being able to resource from the talent that's locally here. So I think Central Florida is, it's great. It could be a little bit cheaper, but it's the talent is great.
All right, well, that's a great segue into our next question. I want to talk a little bit about who is competing. Central Florida, we've talked about what a great place it is to live and work, but who are we competing with around the country and maybe even outside the country? Nilda, can we start with you?
Everybody in this room is competing with each other.
Areas of the state or the country.
I know, I was tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
But as we look at migration and who we're competing against, I think if you look at different sectors, like you mentioned STEM, but if you dive into semiconductors, we're fledglings. Like we're just getting our sea legs, right? But you've got the Carolinas, you've got the Michigans who are deep in that. You've got Texas. So if you look by industry, I think we've got some national competition and international competition, especially in the semiconductor space, right? So I think by industry, if you look at that, you're going to see competition a little bit differently. But in Central Florida, I think the place where we probably see a lot of competition is your middle managers. Just looking at in all industries and roles. You've got a lot of folks from an entry, our first jobs, they're getting there. But then your middle management, your supervisors, everyone that all the businesses I've talked to, that's their pain point, because they don't feel like that group has the right communication, problem solving, critical thinking skills. Some of them have been elevated quickly because through the pandemic, we saw a lot of folks retire early. And so they've had this brain drain. And so there's this middle management group, supervisor group, and I'm sorry if you're one of them, I don't mean to pick on you. But there's real development opportunity there. And so I think locally in the markets, that's the biggest space for competition that we see.
Caroline?
I would agree with that, trying to find those, just from a type of employee, that individual that has a few years of experience and a little bit of experience actually being in the workforce. Mm-hmm. But geographically, obviously, it depends on the type of company you're talking about, but in the industries that I tend to primarily work with, it's Austin, it's Las Vegas. I mean, you think of like people think of Orlando and they think of tourism, right? When you think of Vegas and you think of the Strip, but there's an incredible technology hub in Vegas, in Denver, and Boulder, Phoenix, Tucson. So it tends to be those areas where we see a lot of competition for talent. It's not California anymore.
I think for me, the Carolinas have been a big attraction area. I've seen a lot of Florida-born folks go into the mountains, and then a lot of commerce goes back and forth to Texas. I have a lot of clients that have other commerce in Texas. So I think those are kind of the two areas that would compete with us in the sectors that I see.
Shaheen, you have any thoughts?
Really quickly, we almost look at the U.S. as 3 tiers, and so from a price point more than anything else, cost of labor, and so your Northeast is really tier 1, New Jersey, those New York, those super expensive. In terms of competing with Central Florida, we'd say tier 2, right? And that would be your Georgia, your Texas, your Tulsa, Oklahoma. We have facilities in all those locations, and I would say from a price point, we're probably comparatively in and around the same place. So the main, from a geographical perspective, it'll be those tier 2 locations.
Okay, thank you. Now this one's for Carol Ann. One of your roles with UCF is working with companies expanding or relocating through the soft landing program. We hear a lot about workforce issues, but many companies come here because of the workforce. Can you explain?
just seem a little conflicting here. So, let me put it in context very briefly. Our soft landing program that is part of our UCF incubation program is for companies headquartered outside of Florida. And there are two segments to our soft landing portfolio. It's those companies that are headquartered somewhere else in the U.S. and want to expand by putting a satellite location in Florida. And, right, as a side note, increasingly we're seeing the CEO moving here to open that office, and then within a few years moving the corporate headquarters here, by the way, but that's another conversation. The other segment of our soft landing portfolio is companies headquartered outside the U.S. that want to open a U.S. subsidiary. They're only going to start with 1 or 2 people, therefore they're a good candidate for us, and they do have to be in a tech sector. And they come for various reasons. A lot of times the university, frankly, UCF, and the areas of world-renowned expertise we have are part of the draw. The quality of life here, the transportation infrastructure globally that we have to offer, but without question, the access to workforce, particularly if they're coming from other parts of the country and coming from other countries. If you don't have familiarity, and a lot of you do, with the extraordinary workforce and labor challenges in other parts of the world, then I don't even have to explain why it's attractive to come here. And certainly other parts of the country where the workforce density is just not what we have here. Where we're sitting today, within a 100-mile radius, there are over 500,000 college and university students right now as we sit here. And that's not even counting all of the education institutions. You look at our public schools. We're sitting in Seminole County, which has such a highly rated education system. You go to Orange County, we have some phenomenal, nationally known programs there. You go to Osceola County, we got, Neal, the high school down there, and many other programs. So regardless of the challenges that we do see in education, and I would not want to be in K through 12 education, given the challenges. You are first responders as far as I'm concerned if you're in the education system. But the talent that we're turning out of there that then comes into the universities, the organizations like CareerSource and the training that goes on. So it's just a really extraordinary tapestry of workforce availability and preparation that we have that it's hard to compare it to other places. So that's really a lot of what draws companies here.
Thank you for that. Nilda, CareerSource is working throughout Florida. There are successful programs that we should be bringing to Central Florida that you see in other parts of the state.
I think the biggest opportunities is really looking at a variety of work, learn, and earn models. The folks that we want to engage in training, we can't say take 6 months out of your life and come train. They've got life to manage too. So I think the secret sauce is trying to figure out how can we train, engage, and pay with that experience so that they get engaged in part of what's happening in that company, what's happening in that industry. So for us, really looking at apprenticeship models, really looking at on-the-job training opportunities, which, shameless plug, when you partner with us, we also offer 50% reimbursements. Dawn knows.
I've done it.
Dawn's done it. But we offer opportunities to partner with business to really engage in developing that talent. I think the other opportunity that we have is really looking at how do we look at training maybe at a different pace. So, as technology has changed the pace of how we do everything, the way we train has to ramp up its pace. So I love the short-term training opportunities, the stackable credentials, the micro-credentials. That helps move people forward, but also creates investment of that worker, right? So if I have success, I want that feeling, I want that continued success. So I think for us, it's really looking at those work, learn, and earn models. And I think the other piece of it is really looking at how do we engage business, workforce development opportunities, and our educational ecosystem to say, how can we better start working with students earlier? And so how do we really identify students, get them on pathways early, get them feeling like I can do that? And obviously, how do we leverage their love of technology and other things to really get them started early?
That means you need to be out and volunteering to speak in the classroom, whether it's PSI High back there, she's got her hand up, go talk to her, or UCF, being a mentor to some of our students. There's so many opportunities for you to really help influence your future workforce.
So last shameless plug, we run a summer youth employment program. In our region, in our 5-county region, we work with students to provide a variety of activities from exploring careers, engaging in specific industry training, and then internships and experience. But we need our employers to host students too. And I should not to knock our recreation jobs or childcare jobs. I love all of those types of employers, but we also need to diversify how we engage students. They need to see finance, they need to see technology, they need to see healthcare. And so however we can engage in conversation to make that happen, love to do it. We have team members here too to talk more about summer youth employment, but really giving young people those opportunities, which on the flip side, the piece that we ask industry to lean in on is those students need a supervisor, they need a coach, they need a mentor on the job. So they can't be the copy pusher kid, go make copies. But you gotta be able to lean in with us. And through the Summer Youth Employment Program, you think about those things that you like and you don't like. So when I was in high school, I was a JTPA kid. I don't know if any of you went through the Jobs Training Partnership Act, but young students got a chance to try things that they liked. I had to go work at the Spanish American Credit Union in town. And I was like, this is great, I get to work with money. I quickly learned that math was not my thing. So Shaheen, I can't work for you. But it showed me that I didn't like something. So I went into journalism, go figure. But at the end of the day, these opportunities are really needed for young people.
Thank you. Dawn, what can companies do to land the best employees?
Yeah, I think it really starts with doing more than just posting and praying. I ask a lot of people.
Hope is not a strategy.
It's so hard to find a good person. I was like, oh, great, what have you do? I posted it. Okay, and then what? And then that's the recruitment process. So I think really engaging in what it means to be a part of your community and really recruiting. And then leading into the psychology side of what it means to be a good leader. We're all up here talking about how to fix those people and get the employee. We need to start with ourselves. And so doing personality assessments, knowing what energizes people and what drains people, really knowing the whole person and not just a productivity individual. And I think great leadership and having great employees starts with ourselves. So not being afraid of volunteering, of having a coach to coach you to make hiring decisions or do executive training or leadership training. Learn how to communicate better. When I go into organizations that are broken and toxic, the leader calls me and goes, come fix these people, they're driving me crazy. And I talk to the people, and it's not them, it's the leader. And so then I have to have a really uncomfortable conversation. So I would say to find great people, let's take a look in the mirror, start with ourselves, and people will show up at your door, and you will get to choose top talent because you're known to have a great reputation in town.
Thank you. True. All right, let's end on a positive note. This is about a 30-second answer, please, everybody. We got about enough time for that left. What does Seminole County and Central Florida offer to our workforce that really attracts people to work, live, and play here? Shaheen, you want to start?
Absolutely.
You knew it was coming.
It's a great place to live. There are great people. I moved here in 2019 and was welcomed with open arms. I feel right at home. So I think there are just, in terms of talent, in terms of skills, people being able to do the job, there's no question. It's still one of the most beautiful places to live, very central, easy to travel. So I think, logistically, from a living perspective, from a finding that work-life balance, it's hard to beat it.
For me, I think it's the power of partnership. Really, this community, Central Florida, Seminole County, just the spirit of partnership is like, how can we do this? How can we roll up our sleeves? How can we get answers? And I think that for me is a definite differentiator for us.
Thank you. Caroline?
Well, apart from the reason we hear a lot this time of year, I'm sick of the snow. But the outdoor life, the nature, the parks, the recreation, the vibrant art scene we have. I get really frustrated when somebody says there's no art here, and I'm going, you were just not paying attention. The travel, the logistics, and this openness in this community. You refer to that, and I have person after person after person who moves to this community expresses just astonishment at how helpful people are that they meet and say, oh, welcome, you got to meet so-and-so, you got to meet so-and-so, how can I help you? And I think that's a lot of that's because how many of us are from somewhere else, right? So somebody did it for us, we pass it on. And that's a really big reason, yeah.
See, I'm a third generation Central Floridian. My great-great-grandfather was the second mayor of Winter Park, so I'm from around these parts. And I think it's the nature. I just spent my 16-year wedding anniversary on the side of the Wekiva River fishing. You know, it was absolutely gorgeous. We are just so blessed to have the natural resources and so many. We have waterways, we have airports, we have, walking paths, we have bicycle paths. The St. Johns River is such a blessing to Seminole County. I mean, the history here is just so thick, and I think it's really beautiful. So we've got a great tapestry and so much new diversity and life coming in. It's not the old Central Florida pre-Disney that it used to be, but it's just something even more amazing now.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for all of your insight, everyone. Let's give them a huge round of applause. Unfortunately, we don't have time for questions today because we have an exciting announcement, so we need a little bit of extra time for the end. So I'll call Rebecca back up. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much. So we know workforce is a big problem. We've heard a little bit, but it's just the tip of the iceberg. And we have spent the past year in development of a new program that we are rolling out today. You guys are the first people to see it. It is called Welcome to Seminole, and it is a program to help you guys recruit and keep your employees here in Seminole County. We know you're amazing at selling what you do in your business, so we want to help you sell Seminole County and why it's such a great place to live, work, and play. We have worked with other chambers that have this in other states, and it's similar to what you guys remember the welcome wagon, like here's a bag. Hey, Verizon, you guys are all here. Here's a bag of stuff about our community. Pass it out. This takes it to another level. It gives your new hires or your people that you're trying to recruit to Seminole County an entire database of you. All of the things that you guys do to make Seminole County special. If you are a chamber member, you are already featured on this website that nobody's seen. It went live last night, guys. So it also is going to be a program where you can put your new hires or your recruits, if you're not sure if they're ready for moving to Florida, because sometimes Florida, it's different. If you're coming from New York City, you might not like Florida once you get here. But we will help them go through the process of relocating. We'll give them resources. We'll take them on tours. And I know I'm jumping around. Sorry. There's a PowerPoint, and I'm just jumping. We are going to answer those questions that HR can't answer. Where is the religious facility that they need to connect with? Where's the daycares? Do you know which daycare is going to be best for me and my family? This program is going to help you not only attract those employees, but keep them here because they're going to fall in love with this community just like you have, because Don Sipley is not leaving Central Florida. We know that it's hard. It's hard to attract, it's hard to retain, it's hard to compete with other states and communities, and we know that Seminole County is amazing. It includes a website, welcometoseminole.com, so check it out when you guys get a chance. This is built by one of our members, Evoke, and it will have all of your information, and it will be a resource for not just the new employee, but their family, their spouse, their children. We will have concierge service through the chamber and through volunteers to help guide these new hires and new employees through the relocation process and getting connected in the community. We will take them on tours of Seminole County to introduce them to the people and the places that they need to know as they're getting ready to move here. And we will be checking in on them for a year and helping them with anything that they need. Because we know once you get somewhere new, there's certain things that you suddenly need. You've got dogs, and who is gonna deal with those dogs and the backyard that's now a mess? The chamber has it all, guys. So how can you guys get involved? One, if you love Seminole County, if you've been here a really long time, if you are willing to help somebody fall in love with this community and not leave for the next job opportunity, but stay here and become part of our tapestry, please volunteer. You can see staff or the website to learn more. Make sure your business listing is there. We are getting every single member up there. There's over 700 of you, so it is taking some time, but you will all be there. Make sure we have all your information. And if you see businesses that you know are resources for new employees or new community members that's not there, please let us know. You can sponsor this program and put your employees or your recruits through it, and you can use this program. So if you are recruiting and you are having trouble getting people to fall in love with this community, please put your employees through it. We would love for you guys to help us show how amazing Seminole County is to these people we're bringing here. So thank you, and check out Welcome to Seminole and beyond.
Thanks for listening. To learn more about the Seminole County Chamber, please visit seminolebusiness.org or check us out on our social media at Seminole County Chamber.